Hello and welcome into Cronkite Sports Live. I'm Braiden, joined alongside Spencer Hardenbergh. And Spencer, we've made it to the season finale. It feels like just yesterday we were here in August opening up this semester, and now here we are. It's almost over.
It does. Now it's November, and it has been a wild ride for sure, my friend, but not anywhere near as wild as the end Arizona State football is having to its impressive season. ASU head coach Todd Graham was fired Sunday morning, barely 12 hours after defeating the University of Arizona in what would be his final Territorial Cup on the Sun Devil sidelines. Here's some explanation from the man who did the firing, ASU Athletic Director Ray Anderson, along with thoughts from Coach Graham himself.
ASU and ASU football is in a much better place today than it was 6 years ago when Todd Graham took over. But I also must measure competitive consistency on what happens on the field. Because at the end of the day, that's what a head coach is primarily charged to do. And my job is to try to do what I can do to elevate us and make us better, and that's why the change was made. So the next head coach who comes in here will have to embrace the culture and the philosophy that the folks who have done a good job and deserve to be here as coaches and operations people should have the opportunity to remain here. And we met this morning with the coaches and we told them exactly that. We are using our own internal processes. There is a working group that will assist us in making this evaluation, and then Dr. Crow and I will jointly make the decision. We don't want to be average. We don't want to be ordinary. We want to be extraordinary. And so I would say to those folks, that's what our aspirations are, and it's not made emotionally. We have got to be able to go and effectively recruit in California and in Arizona and places in addition to Texas at a high level, because the other Pac-12 schools against whom we play are going to continue to really mine those areas. We have to be able to go out and recruit those areas and others at a much more effective level. We should be top 3 in the Pac-12, in my opinion, every season. There's no reason we shouldn't be every year top 15 nationally if we do what we're supposed to do.
From the bottom of my heart, I want to thank the university, Dr. Crow, for the opportunity they gave me here. It was a true blessing for me and my family to come here. 6 years ago, coming in here, it was a very different place, and you always want to leave a place better than you found it, and I really feel like that we've done that. And I want people to be clear on where I'm at. You know, that I'm a Sun Devil, and I think I always will be. A couple of my kids graduated from here, and I didn't build this place to tear it down. And that's what I told our players today. This place is not about one person. This place is about a set of value system and what it means to be a Sun Devil. You know, I'm really proud of what we've done here. We have won every day I've been here. And I am so looking forward to seeing the great things ahead for this program, and fired up about going and getting our 8th win. And I can tell you one thing I've done since I've been here: we've raised the expectations. And but more importantly, I don't have any regrets because we've done it the right way. We've treated our players and helped them get an education, also helped them get a degree, and I think give them, you know, the traits and the characteristics it takes to be a champion in life. And if I'm going to go out, I'm proud to go out with these seniors, you know, I want to see them be champion. I want to see the goals of being Pac-12 champions in the near future, and I think we laid a great foundation for that.
Well, there you have it, a couple of very interesting press conferences in Tempe yesterday. Now, to break down this huge story, WCSN football analyst Ryan Clark is here. And Ryan, we were both at the presser yesterday and covered the team all year long. You're an expert here with this team, but I'm going to ask this first question. It's pretty simple. Did Todd Graham deserve to be fired?
Absolutely not. Ray Anderson made the wrong decision when he fired Todd Graham on Sunday. Todd Graham was the face of this Arizona State football program. He invested $500,000 of his own money into this program, and more than that, he invested emotion into this program and the people in it. He cared about the student athletes. He cared about their well-being and their well-being beyond football. You could see that emotion at his press conference, which most coaches wouldn't have done after Ray Anderson's on Sunday. He cared about this program, he cared about this community, and he did not deserve to be fired after a 7-5 season when this team was expected to win 3 games.
And you mentioned that press conference they had, which usually would not happen with a coach that had just been fired. It was interesting to me, he ended that press conference with "Go Devils," even though he had just been terminated. So that was interesting. Now we'll turn it over to Ray Anderson, the athletic director. His philosophy in terms of judging coaches has been called into question. Do you think that's fair to question his decision making?
Absolutely. I mean, he had a great decision in terms of hiring Bobby Hurley for the men's basketball team, plus a few other coaches that have worked out so far. But Ray Anderson's decision in this case proves that his judgment in terms of the ASU football program is flawed. This team isn't going to be a perennial contender in the Pac-12, top 3 in the Pac-12 every single year. That's just not a realistic expectation when you have to compete with the likes of USC and UCLA in recruiting, particularly in Southern California and elsewhere. I don't see this program ever reaching the pinnacle that Ray Anderson believes that they're going to reach. And right now it looks like pie in the sky no matter who they hire.
So you mentioned that pinnacle, and that was one of the biggest things. You guys heard that earlier on the bit from his press conference. He said that this program should be a top 3 team in the Pac-12 every single year and a top 15 team nationally. Do you think that's realistic at all?
Not at all. No, they're going to have years like the year where they were number 6 in the country before they lost to Oregon State. That's going to happen if they have everything go well and if they hire a coach that's on the level or better than Todd Graham. But beyond that, I mean, you're never really going to reach that pinnacle, as depressing as that might be for Sun Devil fans. It's not realistic. It's not a realistic outlook for this program. It's not a realistic outlook in the conference that they play in, which is the 2nd best conference in the country. So going forward, ASU should be happy with appearances in New Year's Six Bowls at the absolute peak, not consistent appearances in New Year's Six Bowls.
So it will be interesting, and obviously it was a huge story, but you know, last question to you I have is, where do they go from here?
Well, they look for the guy that Ray Anderson wants. He clearly has had some people in mind for a while. Early on in the season, he had high expectations for Todd Graham. We knew this. And midway through the year, it seemed like he already had his mind made up. So at that point, I feel like he started to think of a few guys. Kevin Sumlin is one of them from Texas A&M. We'll talk about him a little bit later in the show in a segment with Mr. Jack Harris. But beyond that, get the head coach, try and recruit as best you can, improve that recruiting, and go from there.
So like Ryan mentioned, he will be back later to break down this huge story. But while the news about Todd Graham sent shockwaves throughout the Valley, there also was a football game this past weekend, and it was a pretty big one at that. Sun Devil Stadium was rocking Saturday for the Territorial Cup, and our Eliav Gabai was there and covered all angles of this rivalry matchup.
Eyes were on ASU head coach Todd Graham in a Territorial Cup that had more implications than just pride. Graham's job was on the line too. The Wildcats marched into Tempe with the Territorial Cup in hand. Led by stud sophomore quarterback Khalil Tate, Arizona jumped out to a 14-0 lead. ASU battled back behind junior quarterback Manny Wilkins and cut the deficit to 10 at halftime to stay within striking distance. The ASU faithful kept the energy going, and in the second half, it was a completely different ballgame. Tate went down with an injury, and Arizona State was rejuvenated. They scored 21 unanswered points behind senior running back Demario Richards' 165 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns. Sun Devil cornerback Daz Tuttle-Atausi was out for the Territorial Cup, meaning someone had to step up for ASU defensively. That someone was junior defensive back DeMonte King. He came in and amassed 6 tackles, 1 interception, and 2 big-time deflections down the stretch against U of A. He was the spark the ASU defense needed. The Sun Devil defense woke up and was suffocating in the second half, holding the Wildcats to just 1 touchdown. The Sun Devils beat the Wildcats 42-30 and brought the Territorial Cup back to Tempe. Senior running back Demario Richard mentioned how lucky the team feels to be in the positions they're in.
It's all in God's plan, you know, and we blessed to be here. It's a million other people who wish they were in our shoes. So we just blessed to be here, and we're going to take advantage of every opportunity given to us.
Graham credited his coaching staff and players for making the proper adjustments in order to come out victorious.
I'm proud of our coaching staff. I thought they did a great job at halftime, making adjustments, made the right adjustments. Nothing like winning that thing. I can tell you, it doesn't get old at all.
Even though ASU won, Coach Todd Graham ultimately lost, as this win wasn't enough to secure him another year as head coach of Arizona State. In Tempe, Eliav Gabay, Cronkite Sports.
A big win for ASU for sure. Now to break down more on that win, we have football analyst Jack Harris. Jack, thanks for being here.
Of course.
So, like I said, it was a big win, a very important win, but it wasn't enough to help Todd Graham keep his job. Why is that?
Well, Spence, when you watch that game, yes, ASU wins, but look at the stats. They were not the better team, especially in the first half of that game. They had a few breaks that went for them down the stretch, specifically in that third quarter, but they didn't have more yards than U of A. The only area they really were better than the Wildcats was in starting field position. All three of ASU's third quarter touchdowns came on drives that started on U of A's half of the 50. That was the big difference in the game in my eyes, and that's what helps them get the win. But in terms of what it meant for Graham's job, they needed to look much better than U of A for him to have any prayer, which it sounds like he wasn't going to anyway. But the minute Khalil Tate goes out, the minute they really get roughed up in that first half, I think that sealed it in Ray Anderson's eyes. Like, this team's just not as good as some others in the Pac-12.
Now, you mentioned Khalil Tate. That leads into my next question. He got hurt in that second half. Big injury. What impacted that half?
Well, it was huge in the game. I think it was the difference. Brandon Dawkins comes in to replace him as the quarterback. And Dawkins had a good game in the Territorial Cup last year, but he did not have a good game this year last Saturday. If you look at the first and second half stats from when Tate was healthy to when he wasn't playing, it's night and day, especially with what they did yardage-wise and on third down. I mean, you look at it, they were really good on third down in the first half of that game. In the second half, only one third down conversion. Dawkins throws that bad interception on the second drive he plays that leads to ASU's go-ahead touchdown, and they trailed the rest of the way from there. So I think you can really narrow it down to Khalil Tate gets hurt, a few breaks go against U of A, and that's what helps ASU get this win.
Now, enough with the Wildcats. Let's focus on the Sun Devils roster. Demario Richard had a big game and a seemingly a very emotional game for him. How were his contributions, and how did that help?
Well, it was huge. I mean, he's had a great month of November, which for a guy who had a good sophomore season, not a very good year last year, the way he's finished his career has been impressive. 100-yard games in all 4 of the games this month. And on Saturday, he was huge. He didn't have many yards in the first half here, as you can see by the quarter stats, but in those third and fourth quarters, he was big, helping ASU punch the ball in when they got in the red zone, take advantage of those short fields we talked about, and then in the fourth quarter, helped them salt that game away. I mean, one of the biggest plays of the game was getting that 63-yard run that helped ice the rest of the clock. U of A didn't get the ball back after that point, and for a senior guy who's talked about the relationship he's had with Todd Graham, how close he and Coach Graham had been, I think for him it was very important that he finish his career with the strong month that he's had.
This guy knows what he's talking about. Thanks, Jack.
Now we'll have more football later in the show, but for now we will take a step away from the gridiron and talk about Bobby Hurley and the Arizona State men's basketball team. In a normal week, the squad would be the lead story. The Devils are now 6-0 on the season after winning the Continental Tire Invitational in Las Vegas. This was perhaps the most impressive week in the Hurley era at ASU. The Devils have now scored over 90 points in every single game this season. That's a new school record. Momentum around this program is reaching heights that hasn't been seen since the days of James Harden, as the Devils are now ranked nationally, coming in at number 20, the first time they've been ranked since 2009. Here's a look back at the huge week the team had in Vegas.
I'm here in Las Vegas at the Orleans Arena, where ASU just won the Continental Tire Las Vegas Invitational. The tournament semifinal occurred on Thanksgiving Day, and the Sun Devils faced off against the Kansas State Wildcats. This game was the Cody Justice show from beginning to end, as he was booming with confidence, dropping 28 points on 9 of 10 shooting, and making all 4 of his shots from behind the arc. Up 7 with just 1 minute left in regulation, ASU looked like they had the clear-cut win, but a few missed free throws and some sloppy play from the Sun Devils put their lead in jeopardy. However, they were able to hang on and defeat Kansas State 92-90, securing their trip to the final. In the final against Xavier, guard Trey Holder had himself a day, scoring a career-high 40 points and leaving Xavier defenders absolutely befuddled all game long.
I work hard. Coach Levi always jokes with me. He tells me, I'm in the gym too much to miss, a lot of shots. So, I just got a strong work ethic, come from my family. I always wanted to be in the gym, stuff like that.
In the end, it was Arizona State hoisting the trophy after a 102-86 upset of Xavier. Well, the talent on the court certainly helps. ASU leaders Trey Holder, Cody Justice, and Shannon Evans say that their relationship off the court helps fuel their play on it.
I feel like it's just trust, and we all trust each other, we like each other, and it comes down to just playing hard and trying to get everybody involved. I mean, we're 3 seniors. This is our last year, our last go-around. I mean, we want to win every game. So we'll empty the tank every night, we'll play our hardest, and we came out with a win.
This tournament, ASU averaged 98 points scored a game off 57% shooting. And in the final against Xavier, they shot 13 from 27 from behind the three-point line. And there are no signs of slowing down anytime soon for this squad. From the Orleans Arena in Las Vegas, I'm Spencer Hardenbergh, Cronkite Sports.
From a team full of excitement and promise to one that had a nightmare of a season, that of course would be Arizona State volleyball. Joining me to break down the season that was is Alex Gall. And Alex, to put it simply, it wasn't pretty. 20 straight losses and finished the season without a Pac-12 win. So with such a young team, what can they possibly learn from this season full of struggles?
Well, Braiden, I'm going to say something that sounds completely crazy. ASU volleyball is not a bad team. They had benefit of having Hallie Harker on the back line, who led the Pac-12 in digs this season. They also had Nicole Peterson, who finished 6th in assists. We can't forget about the athleticism provided by Aluma Okaro, who finished 3rd in kills. So really, we talk about this team having a lot of good parts, but they weren't able to put it together for the entire match, and that's why they lost all 20 of their Pac-12 matches.
You brought up a good point there. It seemed like they competed pretty much every single game. They could just never pull off a full match to get a win. So as this team moves forward, they graduate 2 of their best players and leaders in Okaro and Harker. What did they lose in them, and how can they possibly replace their production?
Well, we talk about Harker, I mean, one of the all-time leaders for ASU in the number of digs she had. So they lose a large part of their defense, and no one's going to be able to provide the level of athleticism that Aluma Okaro can provide. So it's really not going to be about replacing them fully, but really about hiding the fact that they're not going to be there. So that's going to come down to their outside hitter spot. They have 2 good young players in Greer Hughes and Ivana Yeremich, who both had good seasons this year, but just inconsistent seasons. So if they are able to become more consistent over the course of the next few seasons, the future is looking up for ASU volleyball, but it's going to take a while to put those pieces together.
And finally, what does the future of this program look like, and what is the outlook for next year and beyond?
Well, it's really going to come down to how well the coaching staff can take the players that they already have. And Sonia Tomasevich has done a great job this season in acting coach Carlos Moreno when he was in for Tomasevich when she was on maternity leave. They're just really going to have to mesh the new players that they're going to get from recruiting. And if they can recruit well, that's going to bode very well. But if they can mesh the players that they already have with the players that they recruit, it's really going to bode well for them in the future. And this team could be really something to look out for in the future.
So patience, the name of the game, if you will, for Arizona State volleyball. Alex, great coverage all year long on this team. Thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you.
One of the biggest names in the sport of swimming will be taking his program to one of the most competitive invitationals in the country. Coach Bob Bowman and the ASU swim team will compete at the Texas Invitational this weekend, alongside some of the top swim programs in the country. The meet will be a huge test for the team and will help prepare them for another test they will have coming up next month when top-ranked Indiana comes to Tempe to take on the Devils.
It's been a bumpy start to the season for the Arizona State men's hockey team. But if you followed their series this weekend against Holy Cross, you wouldn't know that. The Sun Devils took Game 1 3-1 with goals from Johnny Walker, David Norris, and Tyler Bush, and then squeezed out a 3-3 tie in Game 2 after falling down 3-1. The Devils gladly leave Massachusetts with a win and a tie and hope to take this momentum over into their next series on December 8th and 9th against Princeton. Now moving from the men that call Oceanside home to the women who share it with them. ASU's women's hockey team is just past the halfway point in their season, having played 12 games so far and facing 10 more on the schedule. Like the men, they've experienced their fair share of struggles as they've lost their last 6 games. But a shorter bench and fewer lines than any of their opponents, they're managing to keep pace on the ice. To talk more about the ladies this season, we bring on WCSN women's hockey insider Lisa Babica. Lisa, thank you for being here today. So as I said, they just finished up the first half of their second season. How are they doing so far?
Honestly, they're not too bad. Their record's 3-8-1 right now, and even though they have 8 losses in that column, 4 of those came from their Colorado tournament where they lost 4 of those games. They've already scored or have won 1 more game than they did last year, and they already have a tie past what they had last year as well. Also, what something is extremely important is they have 22 goals on this season, and last year they had 26 on the entire season. That's a huge jump, even being midway through their season so far, so it's not too bad.
Now, a lot of their success can be accredited to their standout players. Who are they, and what have they done for this team?
Honestly, the two players who really stand out are both seniors, Amber Gallus, who's a forward for the Sun Devils, and defenseman Casey McGinley, excuse me. And Amber Gallus has scored 7 goals and had 5 assists, and Casey McGinley has had 5 goals and 8 assists. And I think she's really done a great job on it. She's come into from the defensive zone to go in the offensive zone, and she's able to assist the rest of the offense in order to get those goals on the back of the net.
Now, they are just 1 win away from making the playoffs. What do they need to do to secure that spot?
Honestly, it's pretty simple. They just need to win 1 game, and they need to win the game that is the easiest for them to win. Once they win that game, I think they can get quite a few more wins the rest of those 10 games. They have to play University of Denver, they have to play Miami University, and they have to play GCU again in 1 more series. So if they can pull out 1, I think they're in it.
Thank you very much, Liesl. You can follow her content on cronkitesports.com.
ASU women's basketball spent the Thanksgiving holiday in Cancun, Mexico, playing in a 3-game tournament. The Devils struggled a bit, going just 1-2 on the weekend with losses to Mississippi State and Green Bay. Charlie Turner Thorne and company will return on the hardwood this Saturday against the University of Buffalo. Now, a member of that team, Courtney Eckmark, is viewed by many as one of the most successful high school athletes in Arizona history. Eckmark led her team to 3 consecutive state championships. She also was selected as the Arizona Girls Basketball Player of the Year. Eckmark spent her first 2 collegiate seasons at UConn, where she was a part of 2 national championship teams. Now she's back where her basketball career started, but this time playing for Arizona State. Our own Chaz Frazier sat down with Courtney and talked about her journey for this week's edition of Sun Devil Sit Down.
I'm Courtney Eckmark, and I'm a junior on the women's basketball team.
Okay, so let's start this interview. I want to take you back to the genesis of everything. How did basketball start for you?
Basketball started at a young age for me, probably in the crib. I'm pretty sure my parents put a little black and white basketball in my crib, but I've just been playing sports ever since I was young. My parents wanted my brother and I to play as many sports as we could growing up, so I played soccer, basketball, tennis, everything that I could compete in. I loved doing that. And so probably started playing basketball when I was around 7 or 8.
So now we transition from your younger days to high school. Now let's go. When you were getting ready to transition into college, what went into the decision for you ultimately choosing UConn first? Yeah,
so I originally committed to UConn pretty early, my sophomore year. And just because, it's UConn, it's an amazing place, and they're obviously a super successful program, and I'm super grateful for my couple of years there, and I learned a lot, but now I'm at ASU and just really looking forward to my time here.
What was the decision? National championship team, legendary coach, good university. What made you say, okay, I'm going back home to the Valley, Arizona?
Yeah, well, I'm really excited to be back home. Coming back home was something that I was really grateful to be able to do. And I've known Charlie since I was like 7 or 8 years old. And so she's an amazing coach. And then plus with the opportunity to go to law school at the same time is just something that not many people get to do.
So you're here at ASU now, you're playing basketball, and you're studying to be a lawyer.
Yes.
How are you doing all that?
Well, it's busy for sure, but it's definitely, it's an amazing opportunity to be able to play basketball for one of the top programs, go to a top 25 law school. I feel extremely blessed to be able to do that, and it's definitely a challenge for sure. It's really busy, but something that I look forward to doing.
How much do your parents mean to you?
My parents are the best, definitely my biggest role models, and they're both lawyers also, so they're both attorneys, and they know what I'm going through right now, so they're super supportive, and I feel incredibly blessed to have them.
Who has basketball made you?
Basketball is definitely one of my priorities. The priorities of my family growing up have always been faith, family, education, and basketball. So we're definitely into it, and it's definitely a huge part of my life, but it's not my entire life.
Who has school made you?
Oh man, school has made me pretty much the same thing as basketball. It's just one piece of me that kind of comes together to make me who I am.
Thanks, Chaz. Great stuff there. Now it is time to get back to the big story of the day, the firing of Todd Graham. We are rejoined by our football gurus, Jack Harris and Ryan Clark. And guys, this segment's going to be a little bit different. The focus of it is going to be on what's next for this Arizona State program. Now, Athletic Director Ray Anderson talked yesterday in his press conference about some specific qualities that he's going to be looking for in the next head coach. It was a pretty interesting little tidbit of his press conference. So I'm going to ask you guys what you think about 3 specific things he said. So the first one here that we're going to talk about is pretty interesting to me. Got to be a previous head coach. Now, a lot of people are throwing coordinator names around. What do you guys think of this?
Well, I think it's important if you want to improve upon what Todd Graham built that you have somebody that has previous head coaching experience and has built a program themselves or has been part of a successful program. So this is a given if you're looking for an improvement.
If you're going to be a top 15 team in the country, you need to have somebody who's been there before, who knows what it's going to take to get to that kind of level.
Someone that's been there, done that. That'll obviously be a key because Ray Anderson said so. So you got it straight from the source. All right. So number 2, something that seemed pretty obvious to me, but obviously he felt the need to say it. Top recruiting ability. Now, what did you guys think of that? Because Todd Graham wasn't a bad recruiter, so for him to point that out was pretty big.
He wasn't a bad recruiter, particularly in the state of Arizona.
Right.
But Ray Anderson wants to build those roots in the big states like Texas and California. California especially. He wants somebody that can compete with the likes of USC and UCLA, and that's going to be a primary factor for whoever he hires.
Yeah, and I think sometimes Todd Graham's recruiting strategy was a little inconsistent. Some years it was more heavy on Texas, some years it was more heavy on SoCal. He let some of the top Arizona recruits leave the state, and I think he just wants to be a little more consistent in that area, know exactly what the program's going after.
So that'll be something to keep an eye on. And then lastly here, ability to develop NFL talent. Now, he kind of took a swipe at last year's team in that press conference, saying it's unacceptable to only have one guy go to the scouting combine. That, of course, was Zane Gonzalez. Kind of a swipe there. What do you guys think of this one?
Well, hang on a second. Zane Gonzalez was one of the greatest college football players of all time. Gonzalez, that's what they called him.
Right.
So give him credit where it's due. But beyond Zane Gonzalez, it's important to develop NFL players because when kids are watching Sunday Night Football and they see guys talk about their college and they say, I went to Arizona State, or like Terrell Suggs said, Ball Sahara University.
Love it.
But that's important in recruiting. So it goes back to number 2. It's a recruiting tool really to get guys.
And what I'll say is a good kicker is only going to take you so far in the Pac-12. You need legitimate NFL talent to get to the top 3 spot in the conference.
The more NFL talent, the better, obviously. All right, so the news broke just over 24 hours ago, still pretty fresh, but already been enough time to throw some names around. The leading candidate, as far as the rumors go, is former Texas A&M coach Kevin Sumlin. So I want you guys to give me, here's his resume here, give me a little roadmap for Sun Devil fans. What does this guy mean, and would he be a good fit in Tempe?
Well, I think the first thing you look at with Kevin Sumlin is he's a cool coach. You know, he's a guy who's had recruiting success. You just look right there, 4 top 15 classes at Texas A&M, which was a school when he got there, they were in transition, moving from the Big 12 to the SEC. Wasn't really sure what you were getting from a guy who had coached at Houston before he got to College Station, but he did a pretty good job recruiting. Now, I think the one thing you have to question is if he can translate that recruiting success to Tempe. He doesn't get a say if he comes to ASU, oh, you're going to come play it at SEC school, you're going to play against Alabama or LSU. That could be a tough sell for players. You're going to have to recruit, again, in Southern California, which isn't a place he's had to focus on at a place like Texas A&M. And his most successful years with the Aggies came when he had other guys players, most namely Johnny Manziel. So those are all things
familiar.
Those are all things you have to question, but I think he fits the bill the best out of all the candidates who are out there right now.
I agree with Jack. I think he's definitely the best candidate for this job, and I would imagine that he's at the top of Ray Anderson's list. Who knows how long he's been at the top of that list, whether it was the middle of the season or just after he decided to fire Todd. 4 top 15 recruiting classes, you look at that. That's going to be the biggest factor for Ray Anderson. It all comes back to recruiting. Todd Graham was a solid recruiter. Kevin Sumlin can give you that next level. Jack mentioned he doesn't really have the connections in Southern California yet, but those can be built. And Todd Graham wasn't really able to build those in his years at Arizona State. So Kevin Sumlin, to me, is the best guy for this job. We'll just see if he's interested in it.
Interesting note about Sumlin. Went 7-5 this year at Texas A&M. Same record as ASU. So kind of a lateral movement as far as records go. It'll be interesting to see what he does. But if he is the leader, then we'll let it be. But we're going to play, you guys are the experts, so I want you to throw out some other names in case it isn't Kevin Sumlin. In the rumor mill here, who else do you think could possibly end up having a chance at this job?
Well, we'll start with a guy in Pep Hamilton. Now, he's a guy who was with Andrew Luck at Stanford, then followed him to the Indianapolis Colts. Now, the one thing about him, hasn't been a head coach before. His offenses with the Colts and with Michigan have struggled a little bit, so I don't know how well he fits the bill, but he's a name that has kept popping up when you look at potential coaching candidates.
Right, and I think that the head coaching experience is important. So you look at a guy like Derek Mason at Vanderbilt who has that experience, and that's one of Ray Anderson's 3 most important factors, right? A guy like Pep Hamilton, that's kind of a sexy hire for this program. You could see a guy like that maybe turning it around and being an upstart head coach in college football. But Derek Mason, he's got the experience, and that's what Ray Anderson wants.
And now an NFL name will be interesting in Terrell Austin. Ray Anderson has NFL ties. He was an NFL agent. He was part of the Players Union. But again, no head coaching experience. Those are good names, but we're going to find out just how strong he wants to stick to that I want a guy who's been a head coach role before.
Now this 4th one here, this one is kind of a flashy pick to some. He's been there before, done that, won the Fiesta Bowl a few years ago. Boise State head coach Bryan Harsin. What do you think about him?
Well, I think that he fits the mold for what Ray Anderson wants. You talk about a program in Washington as the model for Arizona State.
Right.
Chris Peterson came from Boise State. Bryan Harsin has continued the success at Boise State. So if you can come off of that same model and continue the success that Washington, a program like that, was able to have, then you fit the bill for Ray Anderson.
Now I'm going to throw one more former Washington coach's name at you, and that's Rick Neuheisel. This is a guy.
That's an interesting one.
He's been in the media world for a little while, but today he said he'd be interested in the head coaching job. And we also heard Ray Anderson say he wants to keep Billy Napier, Phil Bennett as the coordinators. Rick Neuheisel's a guy who probably wouldn't have much of a problem with that. He's shown he can win in the Pac-12 before. I think that's another name, a dark horse name to keep an eye on.
We could literally be throwing names out all day long. I know all 3 of us would have fun with that. But it will be interesting to see what ends up happening, obviously, with this job as the next couple weeks unfold until a new head coach is named. Guys, fantastic job. And now we will send it over to Carly Mathias, who has this week's edition of Impact.
Thanks, guys. It was a weekend full of rivalries in college football as the regular season came to a close. For the Pac-12, it was the Civil War in Oregon, the Apple Cup in Washington, and the Territorial Cup here in Arizona. Oregon defeated Oregon State 69-10, giving Oregon its 9th Civil War win in the last 10 seasons. While that game didn't mean much to the conference standings, Apple and Territorial Cups helped solidify the Pac-12. Arizona State reclaimed the Territorial Cup with a 42-30 win over Arizona to finish 2nd in the South. Washington upset Washington State to not only take home the Apple Cup, but knock Wazoo out of the Pac-12 championship contention. With the Washington State loss, Stanford reclaimed the 1st place in the North and a ticket to the Pac-12 football championship game. The Cardinal will take on the South Division champion USC Trojans at Levi Stadium in California. However, this is not the first time these two will meet this season. The two opened up conference play against each other with USC coming out victorious. Although USC has beaten Stanford once already, the South Division has never won the championship game in its 6 seasons of existence. So will USC pull it off for the South, or will Stanford continue the North's reign? You can catch all the action when the two face off in Santa Clara this Friday. Back to you guys.
Now it's time for Sun Devil social media. We welcome in our media fanatic, Jose Liriano. And Jose, it was a wild week in ASU athletics. We've talked about it this entire show. You might have the toughest job of all, though, because you had to find like 3 tweets that were the best of the best. How did you do it? I'm excited to see what you got, though.
Yeah. I don't think I did. I kind of just picked 3 of them because it was extremely hard with the Territorial Cup, basketball doing extremely well, and then other things going on around ASU. It was extremely hard. I tried to find the best 3 that I could. We'll see if that helps out.
Put you to the test now.
Yeah.
This is going to be good.
Now there's a lot of pressure on. So.
Yeah. Well, the first tweet is about ASU skipper Tracy Smith. A little bit of background here. Boyd Vanderkoy, one of his pitchers, posted a picture with his girlfriend saying how thankful he was for her on Thanksgiving. Tracy Smith obviously thought that was kind of cute. He said, "I love the dual hearts, Boyd. Nice touch with the matching blue tops as well. Absolutely stunning. Hope you had a wonderful Thanksgiving." Now, if you guys remember, Tracy Smith, this isn't the first time he's done something like this. He actually wished Drew Swift's girlfriend a happy birthday just a couple weeks ago. You guys found it quite creepy.
No, we didn't like that.
Still getting the same kind of vibes here?
I was going to bring that up. No. All right. I like this one better. See, the last one, it was something about, like, you know, the player was being selfish, like share with the rest of the team or something like that. Wasn't a huge fan of that.
Yeah.
But this I think is just, you know, just genuine on the skipper's part.
And
so
you know in the clubhouse, guys, that the rest of the players are going to be talking about this.
Oh, yeah.
You post a picture with your girlfriend, you're not safe. Coach might expose you on Twitter.
It's a fair warning, yeah. And
absolutely.
at least they know that the players know that the coach isn't one of those coaches who thinks girlfriends are a distraction to the clubhouse. I'm not a fan of that. Live your life, guys. So, I mean, yeah. So the second tweet here we got from Arizona football. Upon their arrival to Tempe, they posted, "The Cats have arrived," with a grinning cat emoji. And Sparky was not a fan of that. Obviously, he is not the kindest of hosts. He's not a fan of visitors, and he co-tweeted that and said, "I was trying to figure out what that stench was." And yeah, that's quite a burn right
All
there,
in
guys.
good fun. All in good fun. It's a decent burn. Sparky, that was decent, but whatever. I mean, that was kind of basic.
I mean, that's just Sparky being Sparky, and he got the upper hand. He got the upper hand this time.
Sure. Yeah,
I think he was
quite,
able to pull that.
Better than the burn, probably, for Sparky, anyways, which was the performance on the football field. But you know, they're always going back and forth at each other. Wilbur, Sparky, the two fan bases as a whole.
What else can you expect?
It's one of the oldest rivalries of all time, and we just love being a part of it, right?
Absolutely.
So then the next tweet I got is a U of A fan here, David Potts. He tweeted out back in February, roses are red, violets are blue. Arizona did an attempted pass in the second half while beating ASU. That was obviously in last year's Territorial Cup. And Madison Curley, a fellow Cronkite student, and also she plays for the women's golf team here and won the national championship last year. She tweeted right back, finally, after 9 months. Obviously, she holds a grudge. She posted, roses are red, violets are blue. As Sun Devil Hoops is undefeated, but Arizona is 3-2 at 942 crew. And I can even add to that now and say, and they also lost to Purdue. So they're obviously, I can spit bars, guys. I spit bars.
That was patience.
Personified. That is just incredible. You know that she saw that, wrote it down somewhere, kept it in her room. You know, I will strike back. And
nobody's safe apparently on Twitter. We find that out every week.
ASU fans clearly just feeling themselves right now. And,
absolutely.
You know, they should be ranked in the top 25 for the first time since 2009, guys.
Number 20. Great for them. Speaking of that team, thank you, Jose. ASU basketball was not the only team in Vegas this weekend. The duo of Jack Harris and myself were there as well, and we decided to hit the Vegas streets on Thanksgiving night in this Sin City edition of Street and Greet.
Thanks, guys. I'm here with Jack. We're here in Vegas, having a good time.
Oh, a lot of fun.
A lot of fun. We interviewed a lot of very interesting people. A few interesting questions. How'd it go?
Not many people in Las Vegas know much about ASU. That's all I'm going to say.
Definitely not a whole lot. Let's roll it. Las Vegas!
Sun Devils. We go to Devil's Advocate and we can watch football, but we're here on Vegas.
Oh, the Arizona State football team, if they win against Arizona this weekend, University of Arizona, a lot of people think they'll make it into the college football playoff. Do you think that they're right there? They're right on the border?
It seems like it.
Yeah, you think they'd have a chance at winning the national title if they got there?
Probably so.
Probably, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, why do you think that?
No.
No?
Not gonna happen.
No, why not?
Well, no, they're not in the top. They're not in the top 4.
So, James Harden, have you heard of him? He plays basketball.
Yeah, I met him.
Oh, it's sports.
I'm gonna fail miserably. No, I have no idea what that is.
Houston Rockets rock. Houston Rockets. See, it's funny you say that now. James Harden?
Yeah, I met him.
On the Rockets? He may be announcing that he's going to retire to coach ASU basketball. How would you feel about that?
So I really think he's a good fit for ASU basketball.
We're going to miss him for sure.
You're going to miss him for sure, I think so. How about his beard? You like his beard?
Of course.
Of course. Now, do you think if he shaves the beard, he'll be worse or better?
He's like Samsung. He loves the beard, he loves the power.
So do you know Barry Bonds?
Yeah, he has a big head.
It was just announced today that Barry Bonds is going to become the next manager of ASU baseball. What do you guys think about that?
I like it.
You like it? Yeah, why is that?
I like Barry. Yeah? Barry's good.
How do you feel about that? You'll think they'll get that national championship under Barry?
I hope so.
You hope so? Are you a fan of ASU?
Yes.
You been to Arizona?
Yes.
You look great. You look great.
United States.
You been what?
I traveled around United States.
Oh, there you go.
He had skill. Didn't need the drugs, but he used them anyway.
We're over and out. Jake the Snake, talking to you live. Vegas.
Jake the Snake, baby.
2018.
In the flesh. In the flesh. Thanks, Jake the Snake.
Now it's time for The Way It Is, a segment where Spencer and I will have 3 questions and debate our thoughts on each one. So since it is the final show of 2017, we're getting into the holiday spirit a little bit. Now, of course, the big story of the day was Todd Graham. He basically got a lump of coal yesterday.
That he did.
So I want to ask you this first question, pretty simple. Was it fair that he got fired?
So it was fair. Was it the right decision? Time will tell. But it was fair. They had 2 losing seasons, and this year they were 7-5, but they got a few bounces their way. I don't know if they were really a solid 7-5 team, so I think it was fair.
It's an emotional decision, a tough decision. Was it fair? Yes. Like you said, only time will tell whether it's a good decision, but no doubt it polarized this entire campus, and it'll be interesting to see how it plays out.
It will. It definitely will. Now, onto the ASU basketball team. They're looking phenomenal, 6-0. Are they contenders in the Pac-12 this year?
Absolutely. Now, I remember a couple weeks ago, they played Northern State in an exhibition, went to double overtime. You were panicking. Told you relax. Now they're 6-0, ranked 20th in the country. They're a phenomenal team. Should be a threat to win the Pac-12, no doubt. At least a top 4 finish should be expected.
Absolutely, absolutely. 3 words, 3 senior guards. I mean, that is just a delicacy in college basketball. I will play the devil's advocate a little bit here. Now, in the tournament, they had Trey Holder was going off, Cody Justice was going off, Shannon Evans was going off. Will they have that same level of play from those guys all season? I don't really know. I don't know if they can keep that up, but they played very well, and there's no reason to believe that they'll slow down.
Then you add in the depth, though, and that's where those guards could, be able to afford to have a bad game. Okay, one more question here. Looking back at the season for ASU football, this is a tough question. Who was the most valuable player on this year's team?
There are a lot. I'm going to go with Manny Wilkins. I think they needed him to do what he did, which was play way higher than anyone expected him to play this year. He really reached a level that not many saw coming, so I think they needed that if they wanted to have the successful season that they did.
At first I was thinking N'Keal Harry, but I'm going to go ahead and switch it up to Demario Richard. He was an emotional leader for this team. And a lot of people were talking about Kalen Ballage before the season started. Well, that's not really how it turned out. Demario Richard was the leading rusher on this team, the star of this team, really, and an emotional leader. He was great for me, and he's the MVP in my opinion.
He definitely was, and he was definitely playing with emotion throughout the final few games, and that's what they needed.
Yeah. So now we'll see who the winner is. This is our final one, so it's a competitive issue here.
I really
crossing my fingers here.
I need it.
We're probably both talking about pretty similar topics.
I'd say. Oh, there we go.
Man.
There we go.
Come on.
Yeah, and I think we are talking about similar topics. So, all right. Todd Graham was fired on Saturday, and there are many who feel it was not deserved. I'm not going to sit here and say it was the right thing to do because, frankly, I don't know. I'm not in that locker room or in that office, and I don't know what goes on behind closed doors. Instead, I'll pose a question. Is this going to improve the ASU football program? In the 3 seasons before Graham arrived, ASU had a combined record of 16-21. Graham's first 3 seasons at the helm, 28-12. This season, there were some who thought, and me included, that this team would get 5 wins max and miss a bowl game yet again. They beat many expectations, going 7-5, and are at this very moment preparing for their upcoming bowl game. ASU needs a change if they want to be a perennial top 15 team in the nation, like Ray Anderson said he wants to be. However, is this the change they needed? We'll all find out together next fall, and that's the way it is.
All right, now time for a special edition of Top Plays. 5 today, top 5 plays of the semester. Big list, and it was very tough to come up with, but number 5, first off, it's Manny Wilkins against USC. How about a good old-fashioned Hail Mary at the end of the first half? Batted up in the air, Kyle Williams makes the catch. Bat the ball down, USC. What are you doing?
Just incredible. And remember, this wasn't called a touchdown. Everyone was off the field. It was an absolute mess, but touchdown ASU. Great play by Williams. Now, number 4, we got ASU football again. Manny Wilkins, whoop, right over that UCLA defender right into the end zone. Great play by Wilkins. He's become known for that hurdle. And that's, I think, his best one of the year. Really well done.
Super Manny.
Super Manny.
At the Rose Bowl, a pretty big-time spot to do something like that. That was a fantastic play. All right, now number 3. It isn't a play, but it's more of a moment. Of course, this is Sun Devils soccer. Allie Moon being reunited with her brother as he was off in the military. Very, very touching moment. A goosebump moment, if you will.
The feels.
And we covered this pretty well here on CSL, and this was a great moment this semester.
It was definitely the best moment of the semester by far. We do love sports on the field, but they have such an effect off the field for sure. And now we get into Xavier versus ASU, the tournament this past weekend. Trey Holder absolutely balling on Xavier. He dropped 40 in this game, 23 in the second half, as ASU outscored Xavier by 18 points in that second half to win 102-86. And now what's he going to do? Big layup? Show him the muscle, Trey. Show him the muscles. You deserve it, buddy.
He is balling so far. This entire ASU men's basketball team's been great. All right, number 1. How about an upset at number 5 Washington? Manny Wilkins, C.J. French Love sealing the deal with a very difficult 4th down reception under 2 minutes ago. An unlikely candidate for the top play of the year, but C.J. French Love is the recipient of the top play of the semester.
Hate to say this may be luckiest play of the year, but found its way through a few windows.
Sometimes
there,
it's better to be lucky than good.
Sometimes it is much better
and that
to be
was the
lucky
case
than
with
good.
that play there.
That was the case for CJ.
All right, so, well, what a show that was. I mean, it was loaded, absolutely loaded. But before we go, I would like to thank everyone for their great contributions throughout the semester. From the first semester freshmen to the experienced producers and directors, Spencer and I sincerely thank each and every member of this team for the great semester. And to the viewers, we thank you for tuning in each and every week, and we hope to have done a pretty good job of bringing you the best in Arizona State athletics.
Yeah, all we do is smile and wave, and the people behind the scenes really make the show happen, so thank you guys. But this is not a goodbye, it's just a see you later. We'll be back in January to catch you up on any action you missed over the winter. But until then, on behalf of everyone here at Cronkite Sports, he is Braiden Bell, I'm Spencer Hardenbergh. Have a healthy and happy holiday season, and thank you for watching.